there, one kite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
What's the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefer?
Yeah, man.
You mean that cat's high?
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters featuring news hawks Kim Cooper and myself, Al Graham, as we bring you Canadian and international cannabis news live here at lifestyleradio.net. Due to the Canada Day falling on a Monday last week, we missed last week's program, so this week we're covering 2 weeks' worth of news. Well, Kim, how are we today?
Busy. I mean, with long weekends, everything just piles up, right? And it did so in the news. I mean, we've got 2 weeks of stuff to cover, and man, a ton happened. It was hard to pick and choose.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I know. When I first opened up everything I wanted to go through, I just thought, oh my God, we combine those two, we'd be here for 2-3 hours trying to get it right.
Yeah, it would be quite a long show. So we've cut it down to what the two of us think are, the most concerning or top stories for all involved throughout the globe, so we can get a mass idea of what's gone on the last 2 weeks, which is a ton. And we're going to start right here in Ontario.
That's right. Well, let's get at it because I got an announcement to make at the end of the show.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on. So right here in Ontario, new regime coming into effect, not only with legalization of cannabis, but also for our provincial government here. We have a change of the sword, so to speak, and new power has come to be. So our legalization regime has been a little bit up in the air.
That's right. Ontario has abruptly put a hold on the new regulations, which would snuff out smoking and vaping of medical cannabis lounges and stuff like that. And Doug Ford wants some time to look at things. Yeah. Outgoing government run by Kathleen Wynne had originally said, she's saying no to vapor lounges. They were going to be, raided and all of this kind of stuff and shut down and nowhere for patients to smoke, which was completely outrageous from a patient's perspective. Big outcry about this. Well, now that Ford is in, he says, he's putting the kibosh on that. It's not going to happen. So vapor lounges across the province are extremely relieved. Oh, for sure. They sure are. I know that one of our friends there at the program, Abby Roach, she's been fighting big time for this. And now things have been put on pause while they investigate things like vaping and stuff like that. So who knows? Maybe Doug might have said before the election that he preferred, private retail in there and the government should be involved. Who knows? Maybe he's going to come up with something along that line when this is all straightened around. You never know. We still have hope in Ontario. Hope does exist with this brakes being put on this really ludicrous law that was going to come out. So I'm glad to see that there is hope. We have yet to see what's going to happen on the Ford camp. It is an evolving situation as it happens. Yeah. They are looking for input, so I strongly suggest any cannabis consumer, medicinal or non-medicinal alike, get in touch with your MPs and let them know how you feel about the vapor lounge situation, that you need them to exist in your communities across the province for you to consume this soon-to-be legal herb. Yeah, they remind everybody but that the Smoke-Free Ontario Act and the Electronic Cigarette Act that was in place beforehand will be what's going to cover the province until they come up with new regulations. Yeah, that's right. So there are still some regulations. It's not a free-for-all by any means, but they have put the brakes on, outlawing the vapor lounges that currently exist. And perhaps any that want to open in the future will have some hope on the horizon of making that be. Yes. Yeah, let's hope so, because I know as a cannabis patient, when I travel to the city, it's always nice to have a lounge to go and visit.
Absolutely, for sure. So hope for the vapor lounges across province. Good news for Ontario.
That's right. Talking about laws, I see Saskatchewan, they have announced some new laws, which includes fines for improper cannabis use. These fines can range anywhere from $200 to $2,250. Oh, too many twos.
Yeah, too many twos. Too many twos in a row. Room 222. There's an old I might remember that. Showing my age a little bit. Oops. Anyway, jurisdictions are pulling back all across the nation. Oh, sorry, wrong one.
Yeah, that's right.
Wrong. Next one. Yeah, fines for improper use, $2,250 once legalized in October. Big fines happening there. Really heavy fines. And I mean, we're not out of the woods yet.
No.
There's going to be a lot of growing pains, so to speak, and people getting caught with their pants down thinking that they're allowed to do something when they're not allowed to do it. And it's subjective to where you live.
Correct. There are 3 offenses that would land users a $200 ticket. This includes smoking cannabis in a public place, possessing or consuming cannabis in a campground where it's prohibited, or possessing or distributing more than 30 grams of dried cannabis in a public place. Well, we already know the federal law doesn't allow you to have 30 grams, or it allows you to have 30, but not 31, because then you're a criminal. So are they charging you for something that's already a federal crime?
I don't know. I don't think they know. I think a lot of these rules are being written out of fear and trying to put these protectionism things into effect across the provinces. A lot of it is just fear because new ground we're breaking here, right?
Yeah,
Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. They're all running around scared, listening to propaganda, and some of them are making some ludicrous rules. With the amount of the fines, this isn't legalization, that's for sure. We don't get nailed with these kind of fines for open alcohol in these places. And another thing I'd like to point out is they say, campgrounds where it's not permitted. Well, some campgrounds are permitted. So what if you go to one that it's not permitted thinking it was? It leaves it open to interpretation whether or not it's permitted unless they outright state that it's not. So I see this being full of issues.
Well, possessing, consuming, or distributing cannabis in a vehicle will result in a $300 fine. So if you're passing a few joints over to your buddy because he forgot to bring a few, that could technically be a $300 fine.
That's right.
Now, as far as possessing it in a vehicle, they say it doesn't apply if you're transporting it from a legal point to a point of where you're going to use it. So you could always say, no matter what, I just come from the cannabis store there, and I make my way home. I got a few stops. Get away. Leave me alone.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean,
now the federal government is looking at putting in, it's there, a federal law, 14 years in jail for selling cannabis to a minor, or you could get up to 14 years. Here, you get a $750 ticket.
Yeah. And that's more reasonable than the federal. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we can't get once again to, giving a kid a cigarette or a bottle of booze or a glass of wine or anything like that. If it's a family member, it's not even a fine. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, they say that cannabis is new and they're worried about the effects. So they're starting off with high penalty structure, whereas alcohol is something that's been around for a long time. People are used to it. So obviously they say the fines are smaller than that. Now, another one here is distribution of cannabis by an organization. There's a $2,250 fine. Possession of cannabis from an organization, $2,250 fine.
Yeah. Distributing
cannabis to an organization is a $200 fine. So, they're handing out fines, which isn't fine.
The people that write these laws, I'm going to quote what somebody says here, and this is their mentality, and I hope that it comes true this way. My experience is it's not always the case, but we'll see, I guess. They say, we think it's like alcohol. The police officers they're talking about, aren't going out looking for offenses, but when they come across them, we expect them to lay the charges and enforce them with the ordinance and ordinary course. So, I mean, that's great on paper, but how many police officers are going to use these laws to go out and look for offenders? Because it is definitely the case that happens.
Oh yeah, and there's that concern right off the bat. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, over in Edmonton, it looks like they might not be as worried because apparently they've got the most liberal cannabis rules in the world.
Yeah, big write-up here in the Globe and Mail that I've just now lost. Thank God. Okay, there it is. There are plans in Alberta to get 13 licensed growers and so forth in the province, and the liberal laws that they're having with consumption being available in various venues, including, events and stadiums and sporting events and that kind of thing. They're having tents that are available for cannabis consumption only. Most liberal in the world. Is this going to mean a huge migration for people on their way to Alberta?
I don't know. It could be. They say that they're going to allow things there that people can't do in Vancouver or even in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Most liberal in the world.
Yeah, no jurisdiction that fully legalized cannabis allows public consumption, including Uruguay, Alaska, Colorado, California. So, see what happens here.
Interesting stuff for sure coming out of Alberta. And I've been saying that all along as they've been releasing their platform slowly, that, the different things that they're going to allow. I mean, in Canada, really, Alberta is the place to be. The stuff that they're allowing, you're allowed to smoke on the street anywhere that cigarettes are allowed. You can consume your cannabis. They're allowing for, tents at the fair. You go to your county fair, and there's going to be a cannabis tent there.
Yeah, now it looks like this is in Edmonton, so I'm assuming this would be the city because this is the council.
Yeah.
Last month, they endorsed a plan that would allow people to smoke cannabis on any city sidewalk, walking trail, in the river valley, in neighborhood parks, or in designated areas at public festivals. Wow, complete change around from what we got here in Ontario. So maybe this is something Ford might come up with.
Yeah, I mean, it's an excellent, excellent plan. And when you're talking about, and Alberta has been so tight-laced about cannabis laws in the past. It's mind-blowing that they've come out with such a liberal plan to allow cannabis to just grow in the community and become part of the community and part of everyday life, and basically helping push the agenda to kill the stigma in that province. I mean, I see that happening quicker in Alberta than anywhere else in the country with these kind of laws.
Yeah. Well, there are some cities in Alberta that do ban it publicly, but Edmonton may be the place to go.
Yeah.
See what happens.
The stigma all the way. I mean, I love it. I'm loving every minute of it. Way to go, Alberta, for sure.
Well, let's talk about Alberta. I see that they've got signed some deals for their cannabis.
Yeah, distribution has been put out. They've signed for 13 licensed producers to take care of supplying the province's needs.
Yes, that's right. They signed with 13 legal growers, and they said they will carry products from each on its online store when recreational use of cannabis becomes legal on October the 17th. They will also offer these items in brick-and-mortar outfits that would be privately owned and operated, and will have to buy the cannabis they sell from the government.
Yeah.
So, they're going to have that, but no black market cannabis, I guess you want to call it.
Yeah.
Legal sources. They only want legal sources, yeah.
Yeah, legal sources only. So they are allowing for, mom and pop shop sort of a thing. You've got to have quite a bit of money, so it's not an average mom and pop thing that we're used to. It's private business is more, I guess, akin to what they're offering, because you do have to have a foothold into industry in some aspect to get a license with them. but at least they're not going to be regulated to only like LCBO type institutions that we have here in Ontario, and they are allowing for outside sales. But all sales must get their product from a legal producer that province has signed with. So that'll be one of these 13 on this list.
Yes, that's right. They say that they received 684 applications to open cannabis retail shops in the city and across the province. Of those, 141 were in Edmonton, 216 were in Calgary, and these businesses have to be approved at the municipal as well as at the provincial levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, they expect 250 stores in the province in the initial year. 250 stores in the province. What was Ontario talking about?
Yeah, 40. And now we haven't even got confirmation on the 40. We haven't got confirmation on one for
never mind 40.
So, I mean, any kind of numbers that anybody comes out with are just shocking. But yeah, I mean, they got it going on over there, 250 stores. There are liberal laws for consumption. Great stuff going on.
Yeah. All righty. Let's move on to PEI. I think they're going to maybe, we touched on about the liberal laws in Edmonton and, how Alberta with the retail end of things. Now, PEI may become a tourist mecca if hotels are going to be allowed to have cannabis consumption in them.
Yeah, they're saying they're going to leave it up to the hotel. So, I mean, PEI over there, their smoking laws are not the same as they are in Ontario, BC, and many other provinces that have banned smoking in most public places. And hotels have largely jumped on board with that. In Ontario, it's extremely difficult to find a hotel room that allows smoking of cigarettes or smoking of anything. They all normally ban smoking. Mainly City of Toronto, I don't think there are any that allow smoking anymore. So PEI is much different than that. They still have many hotels that'll have smoking rooms, and they allow smoking in their hotels. So they're saying, well, cannabis should be the same thing then. If you want to allow smoking in your hotel, then you can allow cannabis smoking, you can allow cigarette smoking, you can allow whatever smoking you want.
Yeah, the tourism minister, Chris Palmer, says it will be legal. So we want to allow as many freedoms as we can, but also respect the rights of other people. There won't be any cannabis smoking allowed in common areas, hallways, and lobbies, but you'll be allowed to do it in your room, and, that's,
You're paying for your room. I mean, if you're paying for a hotel room for the night, you're basically assuming like that you're making that your dwelling. That's your dwelling for however long you've paid for it. It's rent paid. You live there for that length of time. You should be able to do what you are wanting to do that's legal in your dwelling. So I applaud this move. I think it's just wonderful. Great step forward to PEI. Love their hashtag on this, and they say it's their freedom to choose.
That's right, exactly. We want to make sure operators have the freedom to choose, which will then effectively give customers the ability to choose. And cannabis won't even follow under PEI Smoke-Free Places Act either.
That's right. So, I mean, good things happening in PEI. If you're looking to go anywhere, maybe PEI is another place in Canada to take a look at for expansion. More liberal laws coming out of another coastal province.
Yes, very liberal laws there. But we also have some who are against liberal laws. And that seems, that seems to be some landlords, people who have their own apartments, and they rent these apartments out, 15 stories high, hundreds of apartments in them where lots of people live. And we have one company that has 11,000 units that they're going to ban smoking, pot or not, for all apartments and patios this fall.
Yeah, apartments and patios, people. So you cannot go out onto your balcony and have even a cigarette.
Correct.
have, a joint or a bong or a vape or whatever. All smoking is going to be banned. This is coming out of Saskatchewan, and it's nothing that we aren't also dealing with in Ontario. So no matter what's going on in Alberta and PEI, it seems a few of Canada's provinces have got to stick up their butt about this and are going over the deep end with stuff. This Saskatchewan landlord is part of an association that's pushing for a ban on apartment unit smoking, period.
Yes, that's right. They say that our buildings will be no smoking buildings for both cannabis smoke and cigarettes. The smoking ban will also cover medical cannabis and vaping as well. I can just see this thing going to court.
You can't tell somebody they can't consume their legal medication. I hope a cannabis advocate and warrior moves into one of these buildings that's prescribed, because this needs to be challenged for sure.
Well, they say they're going to have a designated smoking areas will be set up outside. So does that mean it's that pole over there? There's no shelter, there's no protection whatsoever. Just over there by that pole.
Yeah, I'm living in my house, and I'm in so much pain that I can hardly walk. I'm going to get up, get dressed in the foul weather, and go outside to take my pain medication.
Yeah. Well, according to the Saskatchewan Landlord Association, Main Street's not the only one involved in this. There's 175 Regina and Saskatchewan landlords that attended a meeting about this issue. And it says 80% of those two groups were going towards a no smoking policy.
Yeah, well, they need to be taken to court. This needs to be challenged. Cannabis advocates and activists everywhere in Saskatchewan area. Find out what buildings these guys are in. Go rent apartments and please take them to court.
They say their buildings are family friendly. Excuse me, but I have a family. I smoke cannabis.
I have a family.
I think we're friendly. Well. Yeah.
I have a family as well. I raised 3 happy, healthy children. I have a grandchild. What does that got to do with anything?
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So we'll have to keep an eye on our situation with this particular rental unit and see what happens with this in the future.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, on to a good news story here.
Yeah, I love this.
Yes. Yes, this one's a cute little story. Quebec shelter is treating wounded animals with cannabis oil.
Yeah, it's great. It's a raccoon that is ill.
And a skunk.
And a skunk, sorry, a raccoon and a skunk. They both are suffering from different conditions that have to do with spasms. And for the veterinarian and the people at this shelter read up on cannabis oil use for spasms and said, well, hey, let's give it a try.
Yeah, they say the results were almost immediate for Gabby, who is who's a female raccoon. They said the results were almost immediate for her. She stopped trembling. It seems to have helped her have a better coordination, better balance, and hasn't made her stoned. They're giving them CBD.
Yeah, they're giving them the CBD preparation and oil. And for Lou, who is the skunk, the cannabis has lowered the intensity of her spasms. So, I mean, that's fantastic.
That's right. That's right. It's been about 3 months since the shelter's been incorporating the cannabis oil into the treatments. And the staff administrators say that the cannabis oil, they give through them orally, through a syringe, or mixed in their food.
Yeah. Yeah, there were
36 animals.
36 animals back to health. I mean, that's fantastic of them. And 2 of them are getting the benefits of cannabis oil to treat their conditions. I mean, that is just amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It's right now there's 36 animals there. I don't know if they're all being treated, but yeah. But it's that's good. It's great to see. I understand some vets have problems with it, but obviously if it's working,
It's working. They say, where are the studies? And it's only anecdotal information. But here you have anecdotal information coming from a shelter with a vet administering this oil, and it's working. You have to consider these things as parts of studies that have been going on worldwide for decades.
Yeah, they approached a Montreal medical cannabis dispensary. The clinic's director and founder, Chantal Ario, who used to be a co-host on the Pace Radio show, she said that the market for cannabis products, made especially for animals, is growing. It's already $1 billion industry in the U.S.
Yep. I mean, CBD for animals is doing amazing things for pain control, for spasticity, arthritis, dementia even. It helps my dog amazingly with his dementia.
Yeah. Well, Chantal says that she prescribes no more than 10 milligrams per kilo of the animal because that's what she's found works the best.
Perfect. We have a formula even to go by. This is great news for the animal world and animal lovers that are looking to help their pets and wildlife in general with more holistic remedies.
Right.
Why not pass on the benefits to them as well that we're all receiving?
We all have cannabinoid receptors.
That's right. And it will work for them just as well as it works for us.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's move on to our last story before we take our break.
Yeah, we're run out to Gatineau.
Yeah, we probably should have done this one already, but that's all right. Yeah, because it looks like Gatineau, we're talking about banning of cannabis. And we're talking about, out there out west, they're allowing places to do it here and there. But smoking cannabis will be forbidden at beaches and sports fields and playgrounds in Gatineau.
Yeah, they say once recreational cannabis becomes legal on October the 17th, cannabis smokers in Gatineau won't be allowed to light up in public spaces anywhere a minor might be present. So that does include beaches, sports fields, and any playgrounds or parks.
That's right. The Public Health Committee studied the possibility of extending the ban to all city parks and a third scenario that would ban consumption in all public spaces, period. But the staff cautioned councillors that third option would force the city to toughen its tobacco bylaws to match or risk lawsuits from treating them differently, which would happen.
Yeah, which is exactly what's going to happen. So in order to try and get around them being sued for this, their answer to that is to tighten the tobacco laws as well. So they're looking at the aspect of, these new laws that they're putting in place for cannabis will also apply to regular tobacco. So I mean, a lot of people are going to be upset by this for sure. And there's no mention of medical cannabis in any of these regulations.
No. They seem to forget about that, or they just stick with the recreational and let the province deal with the medical end of things. Well, Kim, time for our break.
It is. It's dab time.
Dab time, that's right. Time to medicate after that long stretch. And you got a Canada history teaser?
Yeah, it's got to do with south of the border old paper.
All right. And this week for our little news clip, it comes from KCAL9 from California, where the cannabis debate gets heated up, believe me, big time. And then we're going to hear a bit of a song from some gorillas. You're listening to Reefer Reporters live here on LifestyleRadio.net.
Hey, this is Cheech.
And this is Chong.
And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time.
420 radio?
Ooh.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
To the effort to legalize marijuana here in California, voters will get to decide on Election Day. Now, if passed, Proposition 64 would legalize pot for recreational use. Supporters say the massive tax revenue generated from marijuana sales would help the state, but opponents say passing Prop 64 would create a public health and safety hazard. Well, the debate is heating up on both sides.
At the latest polls show most California voters support it. KCAL9 political reporter Dave Bryan shows us what supporters and opponents are saying. Dave?
Lena, Susie, the sparks were flying. Prop 64 is the sequel to a 2010 vote on legalizing marijuana in California. But this time, as you indicated, polling indicates its prospects of passing are much better. And in a heated debate here at KCAL9 this evening, the two sides clashed early and often on some of the key issues.
Is to get past the scare tactics and start talking truth.
Andrew, is that what this
Hang on a second.
In a lively debate on California Proposition 64 that will appear on the November ballot that would legalize marijuana use by adults, the two sides hammered their points home, sometimes all at the same time. One of the hottest issues of the night, would Prop 64 adequately protect children from marijuana? Supporters charging the opponents are trying to frighten people into voting no.
This is all part and parcel of the same sort of fear tactics and scare tactics we've been seeing around this issue for 40 years. What we've been trying to do, and it's why we have the largest coalition ever assembled in support of this, as well as every major newspaper in the Los Angeles region has endorsed Prop 64.
So UCSF has a professor named Stanton Glantz, who's an expert when it comes to tobacco research. He analyzed their initiative. He said it was lacking in how they define edibles, how they keep marketing away from kids.
Prop 64 has the strongest child protections of any marijuana measure in the nation. There's child-proof packaging, there's warning labels, there's a ban on advertising that's uniquely attractive to kids, there's a ban on edibles uniquely attractive to children. This is going to make, Prop 64 is going to make the kids safer, and the current system, which is essentially what the opponents continue to advocate for, is failing our kids.
And youth access and youth use in Colorado is up significantly. It's risen. Problems in schools, expulsions, suspensions for marijuana problems are up significantly since legalization in Colorado.
Prop 64. They got it wrong again.
Another hot issue, how can law enforcement keep the streets and freeways of California safe if they don't have any way to scientifically measure the blood cannabis level when they stop motorists driving erratically?
The California Association of Highway Patrol, the people who drive the freeways, are opposed. AAA is opposed. They know, they've seen studies in Washington and Colorado, increased fatalities. It's a problem.
Law enforcement spent 18 years opposing legislation in the Capitol, which is why we don't have the tools necessary at this point. And it's important for us not to wait another 20 years.
Smart provisions to safeguard our families.
And as the debate continued, the heat was rising on this passionate issue.
But here's the scary stat. It went from 9 to 20 people over 4 years.
And that same report said there's no evidence of impairment with any of those drivers.
Anyone that dies, what are you going to say to them?
Any one person. That's exactly the opposite of what you said, Andrew.
Okay, we're moving on. Proponents argue the most important aspect of Prop 64 is it decriminalizes the possession and use of small amounts of marijuana in one's home or licensed business location.
Right now, we continue to have in the state of California thousands of criminal felony arrests and thousands of criminal misdemeanors for juveniles for nonviolent marijuana only. And by the way, those arrests aren't happening in my community. They're happening in communities of color. A lot of them right here in Los Angeles.
Those are infraction citations.
No,
they're not. They're criminal misdemeanors that are running. Sir, there were 6,600 juveniles, mostly Latinos.
Absolutely.
1,000 juveniles. I would check your facts, Chief.
Well, by the way, the debate was so heated, as you just saw, that it continued in the hallway as we walked out of the studio this evening. But as we mentioned before, unlike the vote 6 years ago on a similar ballot proposition which failed, this time the polls are showing Prop 64 has the support of about 60% of likely voters. Susie?
Celebrate Indigenous Awakening at Legacy 420's first outdoor music fest, August 11th on the Tyendinaga Mohawk Territory.
This one's about rock and roll and comic books and bubblegum.
Featuring Headstones, DJ Shove, Derek Miller, and more, with host MC Howie Miller. Opening drum ceremony at 12 noon. Medicinal, food, and Indigenous vendors and artists. Free camping. Tickets $75 at legacy420.com. A 19 and over event. Indigenous Awakening, Saturday, August 11th on Tyendinaga Mohawk Territory. Take Highway 401, exit 556.
Sponsored by NIMCA and Legacy 420.
I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, not for long. The future is coming on. Ain't happy. I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, not for long. My future is coming
Okay, we're back. We've got some medication into us, and it's almost time to get back at it. But before we do that, I have to mention something. The Legacy 420 ad that you're hearing in there about Indigenous Awakening. Legacy 420 has announced that they have reduced the price of the event. It has gone from $75 a ticket down to $50.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a 33% reduction, which is good to see.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Yeah. That's
right.
amazing. And it's off the hook festival that's happening. Well worth the money for sure.
Oh, yeah, 15 bands. We're going to be there talking to some of the vendors that are going on. They're going to have a cannabis vending area, so it should be interesting.
Yes, for sure.
All right, time for your Canna history moment, Kim.
Yeah, we're going to go way back in time. 1786, was it? Oh, God, I've lost my spot. 1774 or something like that. Anyway, back in the 1700s.
242 years ago.
Yeah, 242 years ago. There we go, because they just had their birthday. We're, of course, talking about the U.S. Constitution. With all of the turmoil going on in the United States right now over cannabis laws, some are rebelling against it. The federal government, namely, coming out against cannabis with Mr. Jeff Sessions going crazy with the DEA, and then other liberal laws coming out in independent United States and individual United States. I thought it'd be nice to take a look at where it all started. It all started way back when cannabis and hemp was all legal. And the U.S. Constitution came into effect in the United States, and it was actually written on hemp paper. So, I mean, if you look back in your history, it's been part of your history since the beginning of time for the United States. So maybe it's time to look at that and take clues and from your forefathers, as they say, and ease up on the cannabis regs on a federal level.
Yes, it'd be nice to see them do that, wouldn't it?
It would be nice. So happy 4th of July, since we missed last week. That was my cannabis moment for the 4th of July anniversary for the United States. So I thought I would throw it in this week.
Good. All righty, let's move on to the news.
Yeah, better stuff going on in the news. Other stuff not so good going on in the news.
Yeah, it's
right. Trying to throw Northern Ontario in here, of course.
Yes, right? You always do. But it's good, You're way up there in the north. People don't even think about anything above, Toronto, and you're way up there 8 hours north of the city. So it's good to see that, the communities in the north create news.
We got stuff happening, not a whole hell of a lot, but every once in a while, one of the like-minded entrepreneurs comes out of the woodwork and tries to get something going. And of course, our townships up here are not so, inviting with this new kind of entrepreneurial spirit, and we more than often than not get shut down. And that is the case for Jason Lafucci, who is hoping to open up a cafe in the city of Sudbury called the After Darks Cafe and Edibles place. So, I mean, he had a business plan. He put it forth to the city, he says, and he got approval from the city for his business plan to open up a restaurant. He advertised that he was going to do that, and his place was getting ready for its grand opening, and he got slapped by the city saying, hey, we never gave you a business permit for this.
Yeah, it turns out they received something from Servers Canada. Which is a master business license for the province of Ontario that protects, name of the businesses. But the city has a business licensing bylaw and a business registration bylaw, which I guess he didn't apply for.
Yeah, he applied for, I guess there's several licenses that he has to obtain in order to make this deal go through. But, I mean, as we know, when I saw the announcement for the restaurant, I kind of questioned it. I thought, well, I wonder how he's doing that. Good for him, but I wonder how he's doing that because I know edibles aren't legal in Canada yet. So this would be the first edibles place. So I guess if a chef is infusing purchased cannabis, then he would be allowed to do that. But apparently, no, he's not allowed to do that. Health Canada said, no, we don't allow edibles. The city didn't give you the proper licenses. You can't do this.
I wonder if there's some way you can get around that, because, like you say, you can purchase the cannabis from the
can
legal
you purchase
place,
it?
and then
Yeah,
you can infuse your own product, make and eat your own product. How could you make that a money-making thing by distributing it? It's
or a
insane.
restaurateur. Like he's a chef.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he wanted to get into a new market in Sudbury in the north, which is fantastic to see that kind of entrepreneurial spirit in Northern Ontario flourishing. But he was immediately shut down.
Yeah. Unfortunately, cannabis isn't legal at that end yet, so they're not going to allow a business license for something that's illegal.
Yeah, because cannabis edibles are technically illegal. The product he supplies with infused food would be illegal at this point in time, is the way that they're viewing it.
Well, they got to let people know that people are letting officials know that they're chomping at the bit to start these businesses.
Yeah.
These are things,
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see, and it's happening in Northern Ontario. It's not as much as it is in Toronto, but it's widespread across smaller communities across the country. People want to make this entrepreneurial leap and start businesses in their niche products that they make and the things that interest them, and turn that into a business and grow this country through enterprise and small business.
Yeah.
But we just keep getting these roadblocks.
Yeah, well, we had Delta 9 chefs on the Pace Radio show, and they're just same thing. They're just chomping at the bit, getting ready to go, and when legalization hits, they're off and running.
Yeah.
All righty, talking about work and employers, I see here that report in the Financial Post that employers are scrambling to address the issue of cannabis in the workplace.
Yeah, many employers are really just chomping at the bit, as they say, and scrambling. They're not sure what to do. Human resource professionals are being contacted from coast to coast. Health and safety business awareness advocates are being sought up. People are looking for information on what to do in their workplaces, and many are putting in policies without facts.
Yeah, that's right. Then they have to be able to check to find out. People are getting upset and they're getting frantic about it. What kind of policies can they put in place, and what type of policies would be lawful? And they say that 71% of the surveyed employers did not feel ready for cannabis legalization.
Yeah, I have one thing that I want to say here. This isn't a new drug.
No.
This isn't a new element into your workforce. People that consume cannabis have been consuming cannabis the entire time they have worked for you. October 17th date is not changing that.
Yeah, and the Health Canada Cannabis Act doesn't really address this issue. They say that impairment in the workplace is not a new issue, just as you said, not a new issue, and is not limited to cannabis. I know that from experience myself. We've had to deal with people at my former employment where there was people, bringing beer into work. So it happens, and they just have to come up with new forms of way of dealing with this. And like I said, it's been going on. It's just because now it's out there. People are talking about it.
It's no longer in the closet, and bringing it out of the closet has had far more repercussions than I think any of us were prepared for. I mean, some of the repercussions that are coming out of it are mind-boggling, to say the least. But we've got to start somewhere, and we've got to keep pushing the education to the policymakers, and keep pushing the fact that consumption does not equate impairment.
That's right.
So I mean, until there's a test that proves consumption in the last 6 hours or something, and that you're impaired by that consumption, you can't really do much about it, and you shouldn't do much about it because it's been part of the workplaces for decades, a millennia, and it was just hidden.
Yeah, well, most employment lawyers say that it wouldn't be sufficient to simply apply your alcohol policies to cannabis use for at least one reason. A growing number of employees use marijuana as a legal medication.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And there has to be allowances for people that are using it as a legal medication. You can't have any kind of a stand in a workplace where you're disallowing an person to work there because they take that medication. That's another issue altogether, but it's part of it, it's part of their policy making process that they're making. And some of them are including that in their policy, which is dangerous ground.
Yes, it is. And they have no way, of measuring what's, someone comes in drunk, you can tell. Someone comes in from smoking a joint 20 minutes ago during lunch.
You have no idea.
You had no idea.
You have no idea. And if it's been happening with that employer that has worked for you for 25 years and you were just completely blissfully unaware of that fact. You start testing everybody and you're going to become aware of how many of the people trust and care about are actual consumers and have been for a long time.
Lots of people that go out for lunch, they'll have a glass of wine or maybe a beer when they're out for lunch, and they go back to work.
Yep. And that's socially acceptable.
That's exactly. Just because someone's consumed cannabis doesn't mean that they're too high.
Yeah, they're not fit for work now because you consumed. Well, there's those liquid lunches. I mean, how many business lunches take place per day over beer and wine and drinks?
That's right.
And it's a working business dinner or business lunch, and that's acceptable.
Yeah, a business lunch with a couple beers, business lunch with some doobies.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Talking about business and talking about doobies, I see here in our next article that life insurance companies are no longer going to treat cannabis like high risk, like tobacco.
Finally, some movement in the insurance companies. I mean, that's one good thing that's come out of legalization for sure, is the insurance companies are now finally having another look. It used to be at one time, up until just last week, that if you were an admitted cannabis consumer and consumed cannabis daily, you could be disallowed for insurance. And they could, even if they were going to allow you for it, they could class you as a cigarette smoker, even if you did not smoke cigarettes.
That's right. Well, one by one, the big insurance companies have updated their policies to move cannabis use out of the high-risk categories. So we have to exhale here. High-risk category of activities that include things like smoking tobacco and into a pool where premiums aren't significantly affected. So it's good to see that, because I know in the past that was a question. People were saying, do you smoke? And if you said yes, or if you said no, and then they go do blood tests and they found that you're smoking cannabis. And,
yep. And now
and then next thing you know, you're blackballed because you said that no, you didn't smoke, but yet they found you smoked cannabis.
Yeah. So now you're blackballed and you can't get insurance from anybody because you lied on your policy. And I mean, it means all kinds of bullshit, but you don't consider yourself a smoker if you just consume cannabis and you do not consume cannabis or tobacco products. And I love the quote here. They say they saw the writing on the wall in terms of legislation, said one of the insurance brokers named Lauren Marr. And he said, but changes come out a little bit before the legislation will happen. So, I mean, Sun Life's the first one that's among the first to stop the use, considering the use of marijuana the same as tobacco, and it will surely fall through to the rest.
That's right. Yeah, it'll slowly go down. It'll be similar to what recently I found out there's a possibility when it comes to house insurance. The industry says, like 4 plants, someone's allowed to grow 4 plants. That's not something that they're going to go against when someone comes to the house policy. Medical
right.
is a different issue because they look at the quantity. But 4 plants, they're not saying, well, if you grow 4 plants, they're not going to cover your house insurance. And so there's been adjustment there, and there's going to be adjustment here as well.
Yeah, that's right. So good things happening under the Insurance Board of Canada, and this should affect everybody's policy nationwide. So if you are considered on your policy as a smoker only because of admitted cannabis consumption, then maybe time to contact your insurance broker and have your policy adjusted, because it could mean a savings of anywhere of $30 to $50 on your premium.
Well, I just got a message from a listener, and they say that their pharmacist asked if they smoked, and they said no, just cannabis. So the pharmacist checked off non-smoker and put cannabis down.
Excellent.
Excellent. Good stuff.
Yes.
Good to hear when things like that happen.
Excellent news.
All righty, Kim. Let's move on to our next story.
Yeah, we're gonna duck over to BC, largely where a lot of the cannabis industry started.
That's right. Dispensaries and the new legalization in Canada. This is an article you picked out from Cannabis Digest, written by Judith Stamps. Good old Judith.
Good old Judith, friend of the show. We've had her on a couple of times for an interview. Love Judith Stamps. I wanted to bring this up because this is possibly one of, if not the last article she'll be doing for Cannabis Digest, as she's decided to move on to other avenues to express herself at this point in her life. So she will be missed at Cannabis Digest. She's an excellent writer and editor for the mag, and she does some great work. She did this last piece talking about legalization and the upcoming legalization of dispensaries in Vancouver.
Yes, she's pointed out a bunch of different things all the way down through here, such as the legal world, what happens after October the 17th, the medical dispensaries and upcoming legal challenges, which is obviously going to happen,
She questions a lot of how they're going to lay it out. Right down from access to the dispensaries' names. How they're going to have a government warehouse, so to speak, which is going to house all of the province's cannabis, and then independent dispensaries, as they say now, are now, once they're become legal in the legal system, that's where they'll have to order from. It's filled with a host of questions on and bringing points up on how this is going to become very problematic for many. And and it starts off right across the board at the very beginning with, first of all, dispensaries as we know it, they won't even be called dispensaries.
No, they won't.
Yeah.
They won't. What will they be called?
We don't even know yet. Dispensary itself, the name suggests flowers have medicinal value. So they say they're beyond government control. They say still there's no health benefits according to the government. Right. So that has to change.
So many people look at dispensaries as being pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah. So that because they're not proven as being holistic or a remedy for anything as of yet by the government of Canada, that has to change. The name has to change. So, I mean, who knows? Outlet, cannabis outlet, who the hell knows what the
Now she points out what happens next for those who want to move on to provincial licensing. She says that right now that each dispensary will need to provide further blueprints showing detailed floor plans. She reads this as further fees.
Yeah, further fees. Yeah, there's a huge list of stuff. It's
yeah.
To sum up this silly list, dispensary hopefuls will need to endure building blueprint frenzy and some inspection mania, financial bloodletting, starvation, and ritual death, followed by rebirth, baptism, and the renaming of the style of Bill C-45. It's a wonder that the province hasn't engaged a priest to oversee the transformation. So that's a little tidbit of Judith's style of writing. I encourage people to check out Cannabis Digest article by Judith. It's very enlightening.
There was one story we're not covering today, and that was down in California, how they were transitioning, the dispensaries were transitioning from illegal cannabis to legal cannabis, and then they were going to have to burn like $350 million worth of cannabis products. And Judith states in here that prior to inspections and stuff, each dispensary would need to empty its shelves, fridges, counters, and storage facilities of all cannabis. So, are we going to see a repeat of that here?
I don't know. Either that or going out of business sales on October the 16th. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. It'll be a free for all. Everything was on sale because we can't have it tomorrow. I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know. Yes, exactly. Same here. Time will tell. 1710. So
yeah, any of the shops that are going legal, I mean, they've got to have empty shelves prior to getting anything new in stock and be ready for opening day. So should be interesting to see.
Sure will be. Okay, we got a few more stories to go, so let's finish them up. We got some international stuff. We're going to go to Maine, where their governor has vetoed a medical cannabis bill. Like what?
Yeah,
the people decided that.
Yeah. People of Maine have spoken. They put this in their election. It came up as a mandate. They voted yes for it overwhelmingly. It passed. All of the representatives passed it. Got up to the governor's office. He said, nope.
Yeah, he's a vocal opponent of cannabis. He wrote in a letter Friday that he was rejecting the bill for 11 separate reasons, including the bill's creation of a fund for medical cannabis research and allowing dispensaries to become non-for-profit institutions. So you veto a law
because he doesn't want research. He does not want research on medical cannabis. I would ask where this governor's ties are. Are they to his people, or are they to the people that are funding his campaigns, which are more than likely tied to pharmaceutical?
Yeah, the state already does have a medical marijuana program, but there's only certain conditions, and they want to expand on that. Things such as for treating opiate addiction and that.
Yeah, and he's against it. He's against. I think he'd be against the original bill. If I'm not mistaken, he wasn't governor when the original bill came through. So I think he'd be against the original bill. So I'm not surprised by this. He's been an outspoken opponent of this, and
well, see, down
on it.
In Maine, they allow their Senate, the House Senate, to override things like that, and it has been used in the past. So hopefully, they can override the governor on this, so that patients can have access to their medication. This is one of those WTF moments.
Absolutely. The governor is lost his mind on this, and it should be, if it can be fixed by other states of government, then it should be, because he's out of line on this. The people have spoken in Maine. They've said what they wanted, and it should be what it is. Not because it shouldn't be stopped because of one man's bias.
Exactly, one person.
Yep.
Only one is stopping patients from access to the medicine. Ridiculous. Okay, from that upsetting thing.
Yeah, into lighter news in New York.
Let's go ahead to New York. What do we got going on there, Kim?
Well, New York is encouraging chartered banks and credit unions to start providing services to medical marijuana businesses that operate there, because the majority of them, all of them, are on a cash-only basis because they can't get accounts with chartered banks.
Yes, this is yet again federal laws has prevented banks, and businesses have had to run around with millions of dollars in their pockets. Yeah, like you say, paying employees, paying for all their business expenses out of cash.
Yeah, everything is cash because that's all they have access to. They can't write you a check because there is no money in the bank, because the bank won't take the money. We've seen this in Canada as well. It's letting up a little bit in Canada. It's still not widespread. I expect it will be more widespread with full legalization in November. I think our banks are working on solutions now. But the Chartered Bank Association in the United States, it's strictly forbidden because of the federal law. But I mean, if that's the case, then, I mean, credit unions, private banks, that kind of thing, they need to come in and fill the void.
Yeah, well, they say here that the department said it will not take any regulatory action against state-chartered banks or credit unions to provide services to cannabis businesses.
Yep. So, I mean, now the government the state is encouraging these banks to do it. They're saying, come on, guys, you need to get on board here. So hopefully the banks in the state will listen and be able to alleviate some of the stress of this system. And I mean, you're putting a lot of people in danger when you've got that much money on hand. There are some bad people out there that are looking for opportunity, and this is allowing that opportunity to happen.
Well, let's hope they see statewide, state banks are accepting cannabis businesses. There's nothing going wrong there. Hopefully that's something else for the federal government to see that what their fears are only fears, they're not realities.
That's right. That's right. Once again, based in propaganda and outdated non-factual information. So, I mean, hopefully things will change, much as they are in the UK.
Yeah, well, talking about the UK, let's slide on up to North Ireland and do an update for little Billy Caldwell.
Yeah, we've talked about him for several weeks in a row. Of course, the 12-year-old boy's mom came to Canada to get his medication for his epilepsy, and it was confiscated when she returned home.
Correct. And then there was a big battle going on, and it got to a point where the government was going to allow the cannabis to be administered to her son by people at a hospital.
Yes. So things have settled down there. Billy's got his meds. People at the hospital are administering it. Hats off to government for getting on this so quickly. But sad that it took this kid going through such a traumatic event in front of the government's faces and the world on social media and through the news. And that's the only reason that it was able to be resolved.
Yeah, exactly. They say that on Friday, Belfast Health and Social Care Trust released a statement saying it was working very hard with the Department of Health to put in place the necessary arrangements for Billy to receive his medication at home.
Yeah.
In his hometown from early next week rather than at the hospital in Belfast. So he's it's gone from removed from him to being allowed to be administered at the hospital to now he's taking it at home.
Yeah, it's slowly moving through the course of getting all of the permits that are needed and everything licensed properly so that she doesn't get in trouble for this in the future. And thank God for that. And hopefully this experience for doing this for Billy will help other kids out there not have to go through such a traumatic event in order to get this government moving on something that's so needed.
She says that Billy has the highest spectrum of autism. He should be having familiarity and order in his life, his toys, his garden, his bed, his own home. Yep. Instead, he's being forced to endure exact opposite, and have to take him out of his home and take him to hospital. So now he'll be able to have his medication at home where he knows and he feels safe.
Yep. So good news for Billy Caldwell. He's on his way home very soon. He's getting it right now in the hospital, which is a great stride in itself. And soon will be home with his own meds in his own familiar surroundings. And hopefully this little boy's life will be able to settle down.
That's right. All right. Well, it's time to move on to our last story of the day.
Yeah, we're going to head out to Switzerland.
Yes, we are, because Switzerland weighs relaxing their cannabis ban. They say that in Switzerland, they allow low-potency cannabis, but bans most cannabis for recreational use. They aim to allow pilot studies on ways to relax its laws.
Yeah, Switzerland has extremely strict cannabis laws over there. I didn't really know that before. They have some for medicinal use, but there's a lot of loophole, a lot of hoops to jump through to get that. You've got to get a federal exemption from the health ministry and all kinds of stuff. And there's only roughly 3,000 people that use the medicinal cannabis regime in Switzerland because it is so difficult. So it's good to see that they're looking at relaxing this.
Yeah, they say there's about 200,000 people in Switzerland that use it recreationally. And they say although current laws forbid its consumption and seek to punish it, this number is not declining. At the same time, the black market is flourishing and the safety of consumers cannot be guaranteed due to the lack of quality control.
So yeah, so they're looking they're looking at it the same way that Canada did. Quality control. Okay, if we grow it and we sell it, like any other recreational element such as alcohol or others, then we can say what's in it and regulate it and everything. And that's where a lot of the countries that's the approach they seem to be taking.
Yeah, well, several cities in Switzerland are seeking to undertake studies to test different models for regulation. Test different models. Can you just imagine testing? Holy smokes. And said that they're looking at maybe recommending changes to the law to allow things to happen. So
yeah. So good things that at least they're looking at it.
That's right. Well, these studies,
a big step.
Yeah, these studies will run through October till October 25th.
Yeah, so by the time Canada is legalized, Switzerland will hopefully be just finishing up their studies and making an announcement maybe by the end of the year.
Yeah, well, not only that are they looking at changing it that way, but they're also, the Ministry of Health is also examining how to resolve the insurance reimbursement issues for treatment with medical cannabis. Oh, can you just imagine that reimbursement for your medical cannabis? Wouldn't that be great? They're looking into that.
Wouldn't that be fantastic? It is a medical prescription, the same as any other. It should be compensated the same as any other prescription. If you have a plan for prescriptions, then it should be covered on there. So, I mean, I'm glad to see that things are looking up in Switzerland.
Yes, that's right. Okay, Kim, well, that was our last story of the show, but I do have, you and I, we both do have a bit of an announcement to make, don't we?
Yeah, a little bit of change going on the Reefer Reporters.
Yes, I say we're expanding.
Yes.
Yes, we are. We're getting larger. We are getting ourselves another reporter.
Yay!
Yay! And why is it? And we should explain why. Kim, just cutting back a little bit. Gonna go do a rotation with another reporter in this, similar to what we do at the Pace Radio Show.
Yeah. I'm a little swamped, I gotta say. I'm busy. It's been a blast. I love doing the Reefer Reporters. I love being part of the Pace Radio Show and all the stuff that we do on lifestyle. Just love all of it. But it's taking up a lot of my time doing it every single week. And I also head up other communities or other events here in Northern Ontario. My Timmins Hemp community is here, which stands THC, of course, Timmins Hemp community. And we have 420 events and other lifestyle events that happen out here. So my plate's really full. So I would really love and encourage another reporter to come on board and join us here so I can have a day off once in a while.
Do you know who this person is?
You haven't told me, so I have no idea who we've got. It's a surprise for me as well as our listeners.
Yes, and actually it wasn't finalized till about an hour and a half before today's program.
Awesome. So who do we got?
Who do we have? Well, joining us next week will be Irene York. She is also known as Green Irene, and she will be joining us on a rotating business.
Oh, that makes me so happy. Green Irene. I love Green Irene. Irene York is fantastic. Of course, she's another Ontario girl, a little bit sort of Northern Ontario. She's north of Toronto, that's for sure, in the Penetang area. And she does stuff out of Barrie and does a television show there on educating the masses. Very happy that Irene will be joining us on the Reefer Reporters. I know she's going to do great.
Yeah, Irene is a patient, writer, an author, has produced videos, and as you mentioned, she has her own TV show on Rogers Cable TV.
Yeah, doing fantastic stuff over there at Rogers and educating the masses in her area and the Barrie and surrounding areas. So great to have her on board. Oh, that's very good, very good. It's going to be a great show, I'm sure.
Yeah, she messaged me during the program that she was listening in, and she was looking forward to the to joining us next week.
Awesome. I'll
So.
be listening in while I'm busy doing other stuff.
Okay, you can learn more about Irene by going to her website, cannabiscornercafe.ca, or you can check her out on Instagram as Green Irene. Fantastic. All right, so she will be joining us next week. Okay, so that's our Reefer Report for July the 9th. And in closing, we'd like to say thank you for listening to our Cannabis News broadcast. And if you enjoyed it, please share with those you love and those you don't. Until the next time, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
Bark at you later.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not? Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website. Sounds like a cool website. Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it. You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.